Discover how to build real self-worth and stronger relationships with how to be more valued in Life Stoicism. Stoic Brath, where timeless philosophy meets modern living. Imagine waking up and feeling like you're just another face in an endless crowd, like a small boat drifting through a vast ocean of connections, hoping someone, somewhere, will finally notice you. In today's world, where notifications never stop and attention is constantly divided, it's easy to feel invisible, overlooked, and quietly undervalued. But what if the problem isn't that you're not doing enough, but that you've been looking for value in the wrong place all along? Welcome to Stoicism Breath, where ancient wisdom meets real life. Today, we're stepping into a powerful shift, one that doesn't rely on chasing approval, playing games, or trying to impress others. Instead, it's about something deeper, something more stable, becoming a person who naturally commands respect and presence simply by how they live. Think about this for a moment. How often do people feel like they give more than they receive in relationships? They show up, they care, they invest time and energy, yet somehow it feels unbalanced. That quiet frustration, that sense of being undervalued, often doesn't come from others alone. It comes from not fully recognizing your own worth. This is exactly where Stoic philosophy begins to change everything. Nearly 2,000 years ago, thinkers like Marcus Aurelius taught something simple but profound. You have control over your mind, not over external events. And when you truly understand that, something shifts. You stop measuring your value by how others treat you, and you start grounding it in how you see yourself. Because here's the truth most people overlook: your worth doesn't come from attention, validation, or approval. It comes from your internal standards, your resilience, and your ability to stay aligned with who you truly are. When that foundation is strong, everything else begins to change. Seneca emphasized this in a powerful way. He said that if a person doesn't know where they are going, no wind is favorable. In other words, if you don't have clarity about your values, your direction, and your identity, you'll constantly feel lost in relationships, always adjusting, always seeking, always unsure. But once you know who you are, you stop drifting. You start choosing. And then there's Epictetus, who brought it even deeper. He reminded us that while we cannot control how others see us, we can always control how we respond, how we act, and how we carry ourselves. That realization is incredibly freeing. It removes the pressure of trying to be everything for everyone and replaces it with something far more powerful: self-respect. Modern psychology echoes this idea as well. Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That's not just a philosophical statement, it's a practical guide. When you stop trying to fit into expectations and start living in alignment with your own values, you naturally become more grounded, more authentic, and ultimately more valued. Because people don't truly respect those who constantly seek approval. They respect those who know themselves. Those who move with quiet confidence. Those who don't need to prove their worth because they already live it. So instead of asking, "How can I make others value me?" the real question becomes, "Am I living in a way that I value myself?" That shift alone changes the entire dynamic of your relationships. And as we move forward, we're going to break down exactly how to apply these principles in real life. Not through theory, not through empty motivation, but through clear, practical ways you can start building a presence that people don't just notice, but genuinely respect. What truly makes someone valuable in relationships isn't how much they try to impress others, but how deeply they understand themselves and how consistently they live by that understanding. On Stoicism Breath, this is where everything begins to shift, away from manipulation, away from surface-level tactics, and towards something far more powerful: sincerity, clarity, and self-mastery. Because when you look closely, the strongest relationships are never built on strategies or performance. They are built on presence. And presence comes from knowing what is within your control and what is not. As Epictetus taught, you cannot choose your external circumstances, but you can always choose how you respond. That single idea, when applied to relationships, becomes transformative. It shifts your focus away from trying to control how others feel about you and places it back where it belongs, on your actions, your reactions, and the integrity of how you show up. Think about the difference this creates. Instead of overthinking how to be liked, you begin to focus on being real. Instead of adjusting yourself to fit expectations, you begin to act in alignment with your values. And when that happens, something subtle but powerful changes in the way people experience you. Your presence becomes more grounded, more genuine, and naturally more respected. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This is not just advice, it's a standard. Because people don't connect deeply with words or intentions alone. They connect with consistency. They notice how you act when it matters, how you treat others without needing recognition, how you carry yourself when no one is watching. And over time, those small, consistent actions begin to build something incredibly valuable: trust. Not forced, not demanded, but earned quietly through authenticity. When you embody the qualities you admire, honesty, respect, calmness, you naturally attract people who value those same traits. Not because you chased them, but because you became aligned with them. Seneca adds another layer to this understanding by reminding us that life, when lived well, is long enough. That idea brings attention to something many people overlook: the quality of time. In relationships, it's not about how often you are present, but how deeply you are present when you are there. A distracted conversation, a half-hearted interaction, these weaken connection. But when you bring full attention, when you truly listen, when you engage sincerely, you signal something powerful to the other person: they matter. And that kind of presence invites the same energy in return. It creates a cycle of mutual respect, where both people feel seen and valued without needing to ask for it. This idea is not limited to Stoicism alone. Aristotle described a fulfilled life, what he called flourishing, as one built on virtuous actions. In relationships, that translates into honesty, respect, and shared growth. It means choosing interactions that uplift both sides, rather than drain one for the benefit of the other. Carl Jung took this even further by explaining that real connection only happens when two individuals show up as whole, self-aware people. He compared it to a chemical reaction. When two personalities meet, they don't stay the same. They influence each other, shape each other, and create something new. But that only happens when both individuals bring authenticity into the interaction. And this is where the Stoic principle becomes clear. The value you experience in relationships is directly tied to the value you recognize within yourself. Not the value others assign to you, but the value you consistently live by. Because when you start looking inward instead of outward, when you stop chasing validation and start building self-respect, your entire perspective shifts. You begin to notice the quality of your relationships more clearly. You become more selective, more intentional, and more aligned. And ultimately, you realize something most people take years to understand. You don't become valuable by trying to be seen. You become valuable by becoming someone worth seeing, through your actions, your principles, and the quiet confidence of knowing exactly who you are. Real value in relationships doesn't come from how much you give, but from how clearly you understand your own worth and where you choose to invest it. On Stoicism Breath, this is where a deeper level of awareness begins, because once your value is grounded in heaven, your choices in relationships start to change in a powerful way. Instead of trying to be everything for everyone, you begin to ask a more intentional question: who actually adds to my life? Seneca spoke directly to this when he advised us to surround ourselves with people who make us better. Not people who drain us, not people who tolerate us, but people who elevate our thinking, challenge our growth, and respect who we are becoming. This idea is simple, but it's not always easy to apply. Many people stay in relationships where they feel undervalued, hoping things will change, or believing that giving more will somehow fix the imbalance. But over time, that kind of dynamic slowly erodes self-respect. When your sense of worth depends too heavily on someone else's attention or approval, the relationship stops being a connection and starts becoming a dependency. And that's exactly what Stoicism warns against. Because real connection is built on strength, not need. It's built on two individuals who respect themselves enough to show up fully, without losing who they are in the process. Epictetus brings this back into focus with a powerful reminder. You cannot control whether someone prioritizes you, but you can always control how you respond to that reality. That means accepting something many people resist. Sometimes, you won't be someone's first choice, and that's okay. What matters is not where you stand in their life, but how you stand within your own. When you stop chasing validation and start honoring your own standards, something shifts. You become less reactive, less anxious, and more intentional. You stop asking for permission to be valued, and you begin setting the standard for how you expect to be treated. This balance is echoed across philosophy and psychology. Aristotle described it as the middle path, the balance between valuing yourself and valuing others. Not arrogance, not self-neglect, but a steady alignment where both can coexist. And Carl Jung expanded on this by emphasizing individuation, the process of becoming fully aware of yourself. Because the more you understand your own needs, boundaries, and identity, the healthier your relationships become. From that foundation, Stoicism moves into something practical. It's not just about thinking differently, it's about acting differently. And one of the most overlooked ways to increase your value in relationships is how you manage your time and presence. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He recognized that time is one of the few things we truly control. And when you treat your time with respect, others begin to do the same. When you are constantly available, constantly responding, constantly adjusting to others, your presence loses weight. But when you become intentional, when you choose when and how you engage, your presence becomes more meaningful. This doesn't mean withdrawing or playing games. It means being deliberate. It means understanding that your time, your energy, and your attention are valuable resources. And how you manage them teaches others how to value you. Seneca reinforced this idea by suggesting that sometimes, stepping back allows others to recognize your importance. Not through absence as a tactic, but through space as a reminder. Because when something is always available, it's often taken for granted. But when there is balance, when your presence is intentional, it becomes appreciated. And this connects back to a deeper form of freedom. Epictetus believed that true freedom comes from understanding what you can control. In relationships, that includes your time, your attention, and your standards. When you manage these well, you're no longer dependent on how others treat you. You become self-directed, grounded, and respected, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. Aristotle's idea of balance applies here again. Being too available can lower your perceived value, while being completely distant can break connection. The strength lies in the middle, in showing up fully, but not losing yourself in the process. And as Carl Jung would suggest, this balance only becomes possible when you truly understand yourself, your needs, your limits, your priorities. Because when you know those clearly, you stop overextending. You stop overgiving. And you start building relationships that are based on mutual respect, not silent imbalance. In the end, becoming more valued isn't about doing more. It's about choosing better. Choosing better people. Choosing better boundaries. Choosing better ways to invest your time and energy. And when those choices align with who you truly are, respect is no longer something you chase. It becomes something that naturally follows. When you truly understand your own value, something subtle but powerful begins to change in how you show up, and more importantly, in how others respond to you. On Stoicism Breath, this is where self-awareness turns into action. Because it's not enough to know your worth. You have to live in a way that reflects it. In practical terms, one of the simplest yet most overlooked shifts is how you manage your availability. Not as a strategy, not as a game, but as a form of self-respect. Think about it. When you treat your time as valuable, when you don't give it away endlessly without intention, people begin to feel that difference. Your presence becomes something meaningful, not something expected. This doesn't mean becoming distant or cold. It means being deliberate. It means understanding that your energy, your attention, your time, these are limited resources. And when you protect them, you're not pushing people away. You're teaching them how to value you. Sometimes, allowing space, allowing others to miss your presence, creates a healthier dynamic than constant availability ever could. Because at the end of the day, this is not about controlling how others behave or trying to force outcomes. It's about mastering your own actions, choosing when to engage, choosing how to show up, and doing it with clarity and dignity. From here, Stoicism introduces a deeper layer of strength, patience. Not the passive kind that waits and hopes, but the kind that stabilizes you when everything around you feels uncertain. Marcus Aurelius described this as an inner fortress, a place within you that remains steady, no matter what happens externally. And this idea is incredibly relevant today. In a world that moves fast, reacts fast, and demands immediate responses, patience becomes rare. But it's also what separates those who are constantly overwhelmed from those who remain grounded. Because patience is not about delaying action, it's about controlling reaction. Seneca understood this well. He described patience as a conscious pause, a moment where you choose not to be pulled by impulse. Instead of reacting instantly to frustration, disappointment, or pressure, you create space. And in that space, something important happens. You regain control. That pause might seem small, but it changes everything. It turns emotional reactions into thoughtful responses. It replaces impulsiveness with clarity. And over time, it builds a kind of quiet strength that others can feel, even if they can't explain it. Epictetus reinforced this idea by reminding us that while we cannot control what happens around us, we always control how we respond. And patience is the expression of that control. It's the ability to stay composed when things don't go your way, to remain steady when emotions try to take over. From a broader perspective, this aligns with what Aristotle called balance, the middle ground between extremes. Patience is not weakness, and it's not passivity. It's the balance between acting too quickly and not acting at all. It's knowing when to move and when to wait. Carl Jung also connects to this idea through self-awareness. The more you understand your emotions, the less they control you. And when you reach that level of awareness, your interactions become calmer, more intentional, and more authentic. In modern life, practicing patience means something very simple, yet very powerful. It means staying present, not rushing ahead mentally, not reacting to every trigger, not letting every emotion dictate your behavior. It means holding your ground internally, even when everything externally feels chaotic. And here's what's interesting. This kind of calm, steady presence naturally draws people in. Because most people are used to instability, to overreaction, to emotional inconsistency. So when they encounter someone who is composed, resilient, and grounded, it stands out. It feels different. It feels safe. That's the quiet power of patience. It doesn't demand attention, but it earns respect. And from this foundation, Stoicism moves into the next essential step, self-prioritization. Not as selfishness, but as responsibility. Because when you learn to value your time, manage your presence, and control your reactions, you begin to build a life that others don't just notice, but genuinely respect. There comes a point where everything begins to connect, and you realize something that quietly changes how you live. If you don't value yourself, the world won't do it for you. On Stoicism Breath, this is where self-prioritization stops feeling like a luxury and starts becoming a necessity. Marcus Aurelius made this clear in a way that still resonates today. If you don't respect yourself, no one else will. And while that may sound simple, it carries a deeper truth. The way you treat your own time, your own energy, your own boundaries becomes the blueprint for how others treat you. Not because they're consciously analyzing it, but because people respond to what you consistently demonstrate. Think about it in real life. When someone says yes to everything, sacrifices their needs constantly, and never sets limits, what usually happens? Their time becomes expected, their effort becomes overlooked, and their value slowly fades into the background. Not because they lack worth, but because they never established it. This is why learning to say no is not rejection, it's definition. It defines your standards. It defines your priorities. It defines what you allow into your life and what you protect. And in doing so, it sends a quiet but powerful message: your time and energy matter. Seneca approached this from another angle, emphasizing that life itself isn't short. We simply waste it. And one of the biggest ways people waste it is by neglecting themselves. By constantly pouring into others without ever replenishing their own energy. By saying yes when they mean no. By staying where they feel undervalued. But when you begin to prioritize yourself, something shifts. You start making decisions with intention. You stop giving your time away automatically. You begin to invest it where it actually creates value, both for you and for the people around you. Epictetus adds clarity here by reminding us that while we can't control what others ask of us, we always control how we respond. And every response is a choice. Every yes, every no, every moment you decide where your attention goes. It's shaping your life in ways that are often invisible at first, but powerful over time. From a psychological perspective, this aligns with Carl Jung's idea of individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself, separate from expectations, pressures, and external definitions. Because when you start prioritizing your own needs, you begin to understand who you actually are, not who you've been trying to be for others. And that clarity creates strength. Not loud, aggressive strength, but quiet, grounded confidence. The kind that doesn't need validation, because it's built from within. Aristotle's idea of balance also plays a role here. Self-prioritization isn't about ignoring others or becoming self-centered. It's about finding that middle ground, where you respect your own needs without neglecting your relationships. Where you give, but not at the cost of losing yourself. Because the truth is, saying no when necessary is not selfish. It's responsible. It's how you protect your energy, your direction, and your sense of identity. And when you do that consistently, people begin to recognize it. They begin to adjust. They begin to respect it. Over time, this becomes a standard. Not something you enforce, but something you embody. And when you live by that standard, your relationships begin to change. They become more balanced, more respectful, more aligned. Because when you demonstrate that your time matters, others learn to treat it that way. When you show that your effort has value, others begin to recognize it. And when you respect yourself consistently, you create an environment where respect becomes the norm, not the exception. And this naturally leads into something even deeper, how you manage your time. Because once you begin to value yourself, the next question becomes clear. Where is your time actually going? And is it aligned with the life you're trying to build? There's a moment in life when you begin to realize that time is not just something you spend, it's something you either invest or lose forever. On Stoicism Breath, this is where everything shifts from chasing productivity to understanding purpose. Seneca didn't see time management as a tool for getting more done. He saw it as a reflection of how we live. He famously said that it's not that life is short, we simply waste a lot of it. And if you really think about that, it changes everything. Because suddenly, it's not about wishing for more time, it's about questioning where your time is actually going. Think about a normal day. Hours slip by in distractions, in conversations that don't matter, in worries about things you can't control. And at the end of it, you feel busy, but not fulfilled. That's the trap. Being occupied is not the same as being aligned. Seneca reminds us that life is already long enough for meaningful achievement, if we use it well. That means being selective. Not just with what you do, but with who you give your time to. Because every person, every activity, every habit you allow into your day is shaping your direction, whether you realize it or not. This idea connects deeply with Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia, the idea of true flourishing. He believed that a meaningful life isn't built through random activity, but through intentional action that reflects who you truly are. So the question becomes, are the things filling your time actually helping you grow, or just keeping you occupied? Plato took this even further. He believed that a life without reflection is a life not fully lived. And that's something most people overlook. They move from task to task, from obligation to obligation, without ever pausing to ask, why am I doing this? Is this who I want to become? Even a few minutes of reflection can change that. Sitting in silence, thinking clearly, observing your own patterns. These small moments of awareness help you reconnect with yourself in a world that constantly pulls your attention outward. From a psychological perspective, Carl Jung described this as individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. And that process doesn't happen by accident. It happens through choices, through how you spend your time, through what you consistently return to. Epictetus brings it back to something simple but powerful. Focus on what you can control. You can't control everything happening around you, but you can control how you use your time, where you place your attention, and what you choose to build your life around. And when you begin to live that way, something deeper emerges: autonomy. Epicurus described true freedom not as having everything you want, but as mastering yourself. Because if your decisions are driven by impulse, by distraction, by external pressure, then you're not really free, you're reacting. But when you slow down, when you become intentional, when you start choosing rather than drifting, you take that control back. He believed that peace comes not from complexity, but from simplicity, living with clarity, managing your desires, and focusing on what truly matters. And that idea is more relevant today than ever, in a world that constantly pushes for more, faster, louder. Epictetus echoed this when he said, "We are not disturbed by events themselves, but by how we interpret them," which means your experience of life is shaped less by what happens, and more by how you think about what happens. And that's where real control lies. Because when you learn to manage your thoughts, your time, and your attention, you begin to move differently. You stop reacting to everything. You stop chasing everything. You start choosing. And over time, those choices shape not just your schedule, but your identity. You become someone who lives deliberately, someone who values their time, someone who understands that every hour is a building block, not something to be casually thrown away. And when you reach that point, time is no longer something you're trying to manage. It becomes something you respect. At some point in life, you begin to realize that the real journey isn't about controlling the world around you. It's about understanding the world within you. On Stoicism Breath, this is where transformation truly begins. Carl Jung described this as individuation, the process of becoming aware of who you really are beneath all the noise, expectations, and roles you've been carrying. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering what has always been there. And that requires something most people avoid: honest self-observation. Think about it. How often do you actually sit with your own thoughts without distraction? Without reaching for your phone? Without trying to escape the discomfort? Because that's where clarity lives. That's where you begin to notice your patterns, your reactions, your fears, your habits, and more importantly, where they come from. Jung believed that true wholeness comes when you stop ignoring parts of yourself and start integrating them. Your strengths, your flaws, your emotions, they all have a place. And when you understand them, you stop being controlled by them. This idea echoes through ancient philosophy as well. Plato spoke about self-governance as the foundation of a meaningful life. He believed that before you could lead anything externally, your work, your relationships, your environment, you must first learn to lead yourself. Your impulses, your desires, your reactions. Because without that, you're not really choosing, you're just responding. And that's the quiet truth most people overlook. Freedom is not about doing whatever you want in the moment. It's about having the discipline to choose what actually matters. Self-mastery isn't built in one big decision. It's built in small, consistent moments. The moment you pause instead of reacting. The moment you choose clarity over impulse. The moment you stay grounded when everything around you feels chaotic. Marcus Aurelius once said that the best revenge is to not become like the person who hurt you. And that idea runs deeper than it seems. It's not about them at all. It's about you choosing your character, regardless of circumstances. Choosing who you are, even when it would be easier not to. Because every day, in ways both big and small, you are shaping your identity. Not through what you say, but through what you repeatedly do. And this journey, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not instant, and it's not perfect. It's a process. A quiet, steady progression where each day you become a little more aware, a little more intentional, a little more in control of your inner world. Some days will feel clear. Others will feel heavy. But both are part of the path. The key is to keep walking it. So as you move forward, remember this. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to stay conscious. Stay present. Stay willing to look inward and grow from what you find. Because the more you understand yourself, the less the world can shake you. And if this message resonates with you, Stoicism Breath is here to walk that path with you. One idea, one insight, one moment of awareness at a time. Stay grounded. Stay intentional. And most importantly, keep becoming who you were meant to be.